On today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast, the first trailer for Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes come out, and it looks incredibly good. Also, House of the Dragon Season 2? Yeah, it's coming out this summer, so a little bit ahead of where I thought it was going to be. Also, Mahershala Ali came this close, apparently, to walking away from Blade because they were going to make Blade the fourth most important character in a Blade film. Also, Disney now expects to pay $8.6 billion to buy Comcast out and take full ownership of Hulu, except it's probably going to be significantly more than that. Jennifer Lawrence says she's completely open to coming back to play Katniss in more Hunger Games films. The Highlander remake, yes, will have Queen music in it, just the way it absolutely should. And the Variety article that got us all looking at this massive mess that Marvel is right now. We're going to talk about how they fix that. That and a whole bunch more, because that's what I'm saying. Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. That was strictly for Jonathan's benefit. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show podcast, coming to you from right here in our quaint little studio, brought to you in part by our sponsors at Mint Mobile. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news, TV and streaming, and all sorts of good stuff. Not just giving you our opinions, but giving you some information and context so you guys can form your own well-informed opinions, whether they're the same or completely different from ours. Joining us in the studio, we got Ray Ora.
Hey.
Jonathan Voico's here.
That's what I'm saying.
Chris Carr is here.
Hey, everybody.
And most importantly, you guys are here. Thank you so much for being here and making this show part of your day. And here's how today's show is going to go. We're going to first talk about all those topics I listed off, and we got a lot. And then we're going to go over and take your questions. And we're going to take questions from our YouTube channel members, but also if you guys are watching live, you can also get a topic or question on by using the super chat feature. And as long as it's appropriate to be used on the show, we'll address it in the last part of the show. All right, guys, with that down, we got a lot to cover today, so let's get going. The new Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes trailer dropped this morning, and I gotta say, I'm really impressed. It looks great. Now, I am one of those people that I have not exactly been excited for the next Planet of the Apes movie. I really love the first two. The third one, what was it called again? The War for the Planet of the Apes? Is that what it was called?
Like that.
Awful movie. Great visual effects, great performances, but just overall a really disappointing film to me. So I haven't really been looking forward to the next, especially since the story of Caesar is now done and all that kind of stuff. Man, I'll tell you what, that trailer came out this morning. And first of all, I don't know how it was possible to step up the visuals from the other Planet of the Apes movies, but somehow they found a way to do it. And obviously now we've gone significantly forward in time. I don't know how many years, whether it's 200 years or 1,000 years. I don't know at this point how far ahead in time, but they've now gotten to a period of time that is more recognizable to the original Charlton Heston Planet of the Apes. We're now in a Planet of the Apes where the apes now rule the world. Humans are more like feral animals and stuff like that. And it looks like we have a new protagonist. That was a great shot, by the way, but the hawk coming landing on his arm. New protagonist who apparently, according to the trailer, seems to have some empathy for humanity's condition at the point. Look, all I'm saying is I did not expect to watch the first trailer and suddenly come out of it being really excited to see this movie. But that's the power of a good trailer. It's not like I wanted this movie to disappear or anything. I just wasn't excited for it. I saw this trailer. I am now excited for it. And that is the sign of a great trailer. And Chris, you had a chance to check out the trailer for Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. What did you think about it? And where has your enthusiasm been for this movie prior to seeing the trailer?
Nowhere. My enthusiasm was nowhere because I completely forgot that this is going to be a thing. And the opening of this is really beautiful. The effects look really incredible, especially for a trailer, right? A lot of times images aren't fully rendered, and this looks stunning. The Planet of the Apes movies and the entire franchises as a whole are really, really fascinating. I am a little bummed to move on from Caesar just because I'm such an Andy Serkis stan, but this has a lot of potential here. I think this could be really interesting. And I really like the story we're telling here too, where it's more about the infighting of the specific kingdom as well.
Yeah, you see that there's different clans of the apes and stuff like that. Some of the dialogue was really good too. Jonathan, you saw the trailer. That king shot looks awesome. You saw the trailer. What did you think about it?
Yeah. Okay. So much like Chris, I kind of forgot about this movie. I knew it was on the horizon. We did mention it yesterday. I didn't realize it was this close. So when you guys said the trailer just dropped, I'm like, oh wow, I got to get on that. I loved part 2. That was actually Matt Reeves, wasn't it? The second.
I believe it was. Yeah.
You should know that.
Yeah, that was someone named Matt Reeves. So I'm hoping this is a return to form. I wasn't big on the last one. So, and I do fear that the last one is going to leave a kind of a stink on this. And so I don't know. I'm kind of curious about the trajectory going forward with this now, just because of the third one. But this looks cool. I mean, this is a teaser. I want to see a little more to the story now. You know, there's cool visuals, but I want to see what the story is.
Well, I mean, that's the thing too. Like, the one thing that makes me scratch my head about is like, this movie's still 6 months away. Like, was this the right time to drop the first trailer? Like, I get it. A number of years ago, it was kind of standard practice that movies would put out their first trailers like around 6 months in advance. Studios then realized, oh, we're just wasting money because that's way too early. And they've been shortening that trailer window here. So I'm kind of surprised it came out this early. Hey, Ray, you saw it. What do you think about it?
I can't help but think about the times where we actually had to go to the theaters and actually to watch a trailer.
Yeah.
The tease of the bird flying. When I was watching it, I was like, I was trying to imagine like being in a theater and like seeing this for the first time, not knowing what it is.
Yeah.
And then when it lands, like in my head, I was like, that's when the audience in the theater would have erupted because
Would have gone, whoa.
oh, it's coming out.
Yeah.
Oh my God, they're making another. That's all I thought about. It's a great trailer. I want to see this. I've been a fan of all the Apes movies, even the crappy ones. So I'm easy to please. So
all right, guys, with that down, let's move on to this, shall we? The new season for House of the Dragon, season 2, apparently, according now to HBO, is coming in the summer.
yeah,
Yeah,
baby,
stoked for
Let's
this.
go.
I mean, there was a lot of apprehension amongst the fans and everybody when House of the Dragon was coming out, because for some reason that is still beyond me. Not everybody appreciated the final season or two of Game of Thrones, which I thought was remarkable. Not the best seasons that they've done. I don't believe it's the best seasons they did, but I thought it was pretty freaking awesome. Anyway, that being said, a lot of people were disappointed with the final couple of seasons or final season of Game of Thrones. And so there was understandably a lot of skepticism with House of the Dragon coming out. You hear, oh, this is going to suck, and I'm not even going to bother. What, how many headlines did we see about that? How much stuff do we see about that, right? And listen, even me, who did like the last couple seasons of Game of Thrones, because I didn't have any pre-existing expectations. But even somebody like me, I had my doubts. I really did. It's like, how's this going to be? And so when it debuted, I watched with great interest and a lot of questions. And it was remarkable. House of the Dragon is simply one of the greatest things on television right now. I mean, I know it's not airing at the moment, but it's in between seasons. And week after week, it never disappointed. It fed off all the best parts of Game of Thrones, and it elevated other elements. It was just phenomenal. And they didn't overdo it with any one thing. The dragons were fabulous. The inter-family drama was fabulous. The performances were fabulous. And the worst part of House of the Dragon was the season ending. That's it. Like, what? There's not another episode I can watch next week? And I know there were some people, because they didn't do it in episode 1, but in episode 2, after the HBO symbol goes down, the HBO symbol goes down, and then that music came. Bum, 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 bum. Some people were pretty upset that they actually went back and used Game of Thrones music. And I remember Rob and I talked about, no, you don't understand. That's not Game of Thrones music. That's Westeros music. That's what that is. And nothing, I remember when those musical notes hit, my whole of my being was just teleported right back there to the Seven Kingdoms. I was right in there, and it was glorious. Now, some people may ask, well, wait a minute. There have been strikes going on. There's all this stuff. How can they possibly have this show ready to air? Well, this comes to us from the folks over at CBR who write the following. Variety has reported that season 2 of the Game of Thrones spinoff will be premiering in summer of 2024 on HBO and Max. The announcement was made by network chief Casey Bloys when not busy trolling fake social media accounts. Anyway, we'll go into that another time. At a press event for season 2, where he also screened the first trailer of the upcoming season. Unfortunately, that trailer is under embargo and they're not going to release it for a little while still. Anyway, but there is a trailer for season 2 right now. While many movies and TV shows have been postponed because of the industry strikes, House of the Dragon was not affected. The show's scripts had already been completed prior to the writer strikes, while the cast members are under a contract with the UK's Equity rather than with SAG-AFTRA. And of course, the UK Equity thing has not been under strike. It wasn't a SAG-affiliated thing. So they've been able, while the strikes were going on, to just finish shooting, do whatever reshoots they had to do, and they're ready to come out. And it's coming out in summer. So 7 or 8 months, anywhere between 6 and 8 months away. They didn't give a specific date. But I got to tell you, Chris, Last of Us season 2, and that's it. Like in the absolute top echelon of the things that I am, Boys season 4 too, but the Boys season 4, Last of Us season 2, and this season 2. I mean, these are the things that have me most excited about television right now. And I was really worried we were going to hear 2025, because I think that's when Last of Us season 2 is not going to come out until. It's coming out this summer. I'm stoked. What do you think about the news? And are you surprised?
Absolutely thrilled about this. And just to clarify too, for anyone who hasn't been watching this show recently, we've talked about too the Equity versus SAG before in the past because of labor laws in the UK. If the Equity actors were to strike in solidarity with our actors union, that is actually a huge issue. That is unlawful for them to do because it's considered secondary action. So that's why they can continue working and you guys still get some tasty content. Yay! I'm really hyped about this because I love Last of Us so much, but as I learned last year, I can't watch that show at a viewing party with people. I'm gonna cry too much. It got to the point with my viewings where all of us were like, we don't want to watch this together. We all want to watch this in our homes separately under blankets, sobbing. Whereas House of the Dragon, that was a super fun Game of Thrones kind of ride of still watching it together, speculating, talking about the characters that you don't like. You know, it's
Most
Succession.
of them.
Most of them, honestly. It's Succession with dragons. It's incredible storytelling. It's a really wonderful political show that just happens to be in the world of fantasy to make that kind of political power grab a bit more palatable for some of us nerds. Because sometimes, I gotta be honest, Succession, I'd be like, I understand, but also could we not talk about the inner workings of business? Could we just shift a little bit? Here, at least, I can get distracted by a dragon fight. I love it.
I wouldn't be surprised with the obvious lack of movies coming up in the next few months if HBO doesn't work with theaters to air some of these back to back, theaters.
Ooh, that'd be fun.
I know the theaters would love that. The problem, of course, will Max want that? Because Max will want every single set of eyeballs on Max that they can, as opposed to going out to a movie theater to see it. But I know you're right, the theaters would love it. One of the most badass moments. I mean, we see these great badass moments, whether it's Joel killing a bunch of people or some great badass moments in Arcane or something like that. But to me, one of the single most badass moments in all of television, and it's very disturbing to watch, but the lead girl just had a baby. And she has to, while still bleeding, walk through the palace and upstairs because the queen asked to see the baby. And she's like, I ain't going to show weakness. And boom, I'm like, holy crap, that is badass. That was it was very disturbing. I don't want to see it again.
No. This show has made it so clear that I am not a person who wants to do that.
Medical technology has come a long way.
You don't believe it or not.
I know I'm not going to have to traverse the stairs and show off my baby as if they are simple.
But you should.
You're not going to have to greet the CEO of the hospital.
Everyone's going to be like, that Chris Carr's a weak bitch.
The CEO
she didn't
of the
bring her
hospital
baby out.
insists on christening every baby, so you have to march up there.
But it does do such such a good job, though, of being like, this is horrifying. This is so horrifying.
I mean, one of the things they did too was, and some other shows set in fantasy time periods don't do as good of a job. One of the things House of the Dragon did really well was like, there are several reasons why living in an age like this would really suck. Like, want to have a baby? That's a coin toss as to whether you live or die.
Yep.
Like, you never know. It's just, oh my God, the show is so good. And Matt Smith, well, no, forget, I'm not going to list off specific names. Everyone in the show is so good.
Everyone is. But Matt Smith and Patty are so incredible.
Patty didn't get an Emmy nomination.
Patty was fucking robbed.
My Prince,
really
baby.
should have got who? Oh, Damon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Prince.
I love that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I hated him after the first episode. I was like, I don't like this guy. And then all of a sudden, just his mannerisms when all the drama would go on, just the way he would just sit in the back and just like smirk. I was like, this is the type of guy that he doesn't involve himself in that stuff. Like, I love that part about him. But yet he's still scheming himself.
Yeah,
you know.
but apparently, from what I heard, he goes real dark the next season. Well, we'll see though. It's going to be awesome.
Better live though.
All right. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? According to reports right now, reliable reports, Mahershala Ali, how many times has he won Oscars, Ray?
2-time.
Two-time Academy Award winner Mahershala Ali came this close to walking from the Blade project because things are such a mess at Marvel. One of the 5 different sets of script writers.
5-time.
Script writers wrote a draft that said Blade was going to be the 4th lead character, not the first, not the second, not third, the 4th lead character in his own show or own movie. This comes to us from Slash Film, who write the following. Now a report in Variety reveals that the behind-the-scenes troubles with the film have grown so frustrating that Mahershala Ali came close to completely walking away from the movie altogether. Here's a glimpse of how strange things have become. As Variety puts it, at one point the script morphed into a narrative led by a woman and filled with life lessons. Blade was relegated to the 4th lead, a bizarre idea considering that the studio had 2-time Oscar winner Mahershala Ali on board. Yes, that's right. Blade wasn't even going to be the main character in the Blade movie. Now, we kind of touched on this yesterday a little bit because one of our viewers sent in a question. I am fine. I'm okay with a big character being used as just the part of an ensemble. Sometimes I think that can be really interesting. I'm even okay with the main character further along in their series, in 1 or 2 of their chapters, maybe taking a little bit of a back seat to another character to get a little bit of shine. I'm okay with that in principle. But if you're making a movie called Blade, I expect the movie to be about Blade. Now, this was also it's funny that the Blade franchise, when it wasn't under Disney, kind of had the same problem. Mm-hmm. Because they got to Blade 3 and decided, you know what? We're not going to make this a Blade movie. We're going to make this a Night Stalker movie. It's going to be about Jessica Biel and her lightsabers and Hannibal King and Rosie Parker. I mean, that's the actress' name, right? Rosie Parker. I think that's her name. I might be wrong about her name. Anyway, yelling Hannibal King like 4 or 5 times, which was Ryan Reynolds' character's name. It got so bad that according to who is the writer? David, the guy who wrote the Dark Knight franchise with Christopher Nolan. But anyway, that apparently that dude who was directing Blade 3, that at one point Wesley Snipes literally attacked him and
David
Goyer, thank you. Attacked him and started choking him on set.
Really?
Like, apparently, yeah. At least that's what David Goyer says, if I understand the stories correctly.
Wow.
I mean, it was a total mess. Look, we're going to be talking about the overall chaos that Marvel is in right now and the things behind it. And I don't want to go too much into the stuff that we're going to be talking about later. All I'm going to say is this is yet another symptom or byproduct of the chaos that's going on over there, because drafts and scripts are being developed and written without oversight and not being given the scrutiny that Marvel used to give their stuff a number of years ago. And because of that, stuff like this flies under the radar. Now, thankfully, at some point, Kevin Feige and others caught wind of this, saw what was being developed, and said no, and they changed writers again. But I mean, it should never have gotten to this point. Now, Ray, if you can help me out, how old is Mahershala Ali now?
He is 50.
Because I think he was 28 when
49.
they signed him on for this.
He should be 49.
He's 49?
49.
Okay. He was 28 years old when they signed him on for this.
I wasn't born yet.
Because I believe it was
announced Blade.
21 years ago that they know it. But it's been a long time coming and waiting. Anyway, Chris, you read about this story. What do you make of it?
It is so reminiscent of Blade Trinity.
Yeah.
Which feels so weird.
That's not Wesley's movie. Now it's Ryan. And I love Ryan Reynolds, but I mean, now it's Ryan Reynolds.
Big fans of Ryan Reynolds here, but it wasn't a Blade movie. And there's just a certain expectation when you label things, right? I'm a big Food Network person, and if you tell me you're making a tiramisu and instead you just throw a couple ladyfingers and give me a cup of coffee, I'm going to call that bullshit.
That's got to be a T-shirt, by the way. If you tell me I get tiramisu and you just give me these in a coffee. That's
Chat,
bullshit.
make it so. Make some merch for us, okay? 10% of sales go to you. Make it happen. So I think it's so ridiculous that they would even go about it this way. This movie has been plagued with issues, with the scripts being changed constantly, with filming being shut down.
They've
with the
had to swap out
strikes.
directors.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it truly feels cursed. And to have such an incredible talent as your lead to usher in this really interesting macabre part of the Marvel Universe, why would you squander this opportunity? There's just some things that are happening at Disney, and obviously we are not privy to everything that is happening. I'm sure behind closed doors, there's a lot of really smart people making great decisions. But it's hard to see everything that's being reported right now and go, what ideas are losing to these? You didn't have showrunners, you didn't have this, you didn't have that. Some of the most basic ways to construct TV shows, films, etc. It's wild to me that all these things are happening. And I don't blame him for walking away from his movie that keeps being delayed or considering walking away, I should say, when it keeps being delayed and then he's not even going to be top of the sheet. He's not going to be number one on the call sheet. That's some bullshit.
Yeah. I mean, now granted, it didn't happen.
It didn't happen.
It didn't happen. They stopped it. They prevented it. But just the fact that it got to that point is whatever. I mean, he didn't learn the lesson of Ryan Reynolds in Blade 3? Come on. I mean, and not that wasn't Ryan Reynolds' fault, by the way. I'm just saying, did not learn that lesson?
If they need to, they just need to make this like the on the side movie. They don't need to connect it to anything. It would be great, like that Halloween movie that they released, the monster movie.
Werewolf by Night.
Night.
Just make it a one.
Great.
If there's some problems with connecting it to everything else, don't connect it. I just want to see a Blade movie. If I walked into Blade and watched it and he was the fourth most important character in the film, I would be so pissed because we've been waiting for this. I've been waiting for this film for a long time.
Yeah, I don't want to see a movie where Blade sits down with a kid on steps and says, "Billy, let's talk about why it's important to stay in school." Like I don't want to Blade with life lessons.
Keep the fangs in, Billy.
Now here's the problem though with like saying, like, even if it's separate, what's most of the MCU's fans crying about these days? Nothing feels connected anymore, which I don't really care whether it feels connected or not, but there's that big problem. But I mean, you're right. Werewolf by Night felt pretty disconnected and it was great. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 felt totally disconnected from everything else, and it was great. So they could do that, but I think they really do want to make him fit in this world.
But there's throwaway ways to do it, too, that still feel satisfying, right?
Yeah.
Because initially, the Netflix stuff was maybe possibly canon, right? But you just had things like, oh, well, the big guy running around New York. Oh, so that fight in New York did happen in this universe. Great. And that's all the connection I needed, right? Okay. I don't need to see them playing together.
Overtly connected. It was just implied connected, which was good enough for
universal,
most people.
yeah.
All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? Hulu has been living in a dichotomic state for a while now. The majority of Hulu is owned by Disney. We all have known that. But what some people didn't know is that Comcast, NBC Universal, has still been a 1/3 owner of Hulu. Now, a number of months ago, we talked about the fact that the deal between Disney and Hulu was at some point a sale was going to be able to be forced. Either Disney was going to be forced to sell their 2/3 share to Comcast, or Comcast had the option to force Disney to buy them out of their 1/3 share. And it's now done. Comcast called the call put option, and Disney is going to acquire 100% of Hulu, and they're going to be fully in charge of Hulu. But how much is it going to cost them? Well, Disney put out a statement the other day saying they expect it to cost them $8.6 billion. But it's not. It's going to be more than that. This comes from the folks at Variety who wrote the following. Hulu's equity fair value is being assessed as of September 30th, 2023, by bankers enlisted by each side, Disney side and Comcast side, in accordance with the parties' agreed appraisal process. Comcast has tapped Morgan Stanley and Disney hired JP Morgan Chase per NBC report. If the numbers calculated, now this is important. I know this is number mumbo jumbo, but follow me along here. This is important. If the numbers calculated by Disney and Comcast bankers are not within 10% of each other, the two banking firms will pick a third firm to make another estimate. And Hulu's final valuation will be the average of the two figures that are closest to each other. What that means is this. Disney right now is saying, we believe 1/3 of Hulu should be valued at $8.6 billion. Or as Variety said, that puts an entire valuation on Hulu of $27.5 billion. That's what they think Hulu is worth. So if they determine that Hulu is worth $27.5 billion, then they, for 1/3 of it, they got to give $8.61 billion over to the folks at Comcast Universal. But Comcast is saying, no, we think Hulu is worth more than that. We think if we put Hulu up for auction, we think liners would be buying up to bid on this thing. And the value could go well north of $30 billion, which means instead of spending 8-point-something billion, Disney's going to have to cough up 10 billion or 11 billion or more. So the system that they figured out, it's a little complex, but it's actually, I got to say, I think it's a pretty good system they've come up with. The system they've come up with to settle this dispute is that Disney has hired a financial firm. I can't remember which one it was, Morgan Stanley. Morgan Stanley is now going to come in. They're going to do an assessment and set what they think the value of Hulu is. Okay. Then Comcast has got JP Morgan. Sorry, it's the other way around. So Disney has JP Morgan, Comcast has Morgan Stanley. Comcast's bankers are going to come in and they're going to say, we've evaluated the value and we think it's this. Now, if those values are within 10% of each other, so let's say one thinks it's worth 29 billion, one thinks it's worth 29.5 billion. Okay, they're within 10%. What they'll do is they'll just meet in the middle and that will be the final price. However, if Disney's bankers and Comcast bankers are more than 10% apart, then those two banks will go out and get a third bank. They will do their own estimate. And then if their estimate is closer to one or the other, they'll take the difference of those two. It's actually a pretty fair system. The bottom line, though, here is this. Disney's saying they're going to spend $8.6 billion. It is not going to be $8.6 billion. It may not be a ton more, but it's going to be more. Still, at the end of the day, Disney is now going to be in full control of Hulu, which means I believe that sometime in 2024, maybe mid or late 2024, and this is just me guessing, no one's telling me this, I think you're going to see Disney Plus do what they've done in other international markets, which is to take other third-party properties and just absorb them in. I think we are going to come to a place where Hulu is just going to be absorbed into Disney Plus. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be like a separate section in it. How they'll arrange it, I'm not sure. But now the gateways are open for them to do that. Anyway, Chris, that you see this. What do you think about Disney getting full control of Hulu? Is this going to be good for them, bad for them? You know they didn't want to spend $8 billion. They're probably going to have to spend more.
Sure don't want to spend 30.
Yeah. What do you think about this?
I love that the Comcast CEO, Brian Roberts, too, is we believe that the synergies that Hulu has to offer is closer to the $30 billion mark.
Yeah.
And we look forward to seeing the fair market value of what Hulu is actually worth. I love that they're already just laying out that blueprint of, oh, it's going to cost you so much more, Bobby. It's going to be more expensive.
Which, by the way, Disney, don't make no mistake, whatever you heard, Disney is still a very, very rich company.
Oh, 100%.
But they've been tightening the belts lately. They don't just have 9 billion.
No.
That's just, we were just going to use that to go to Cancun. Like, I mean, this is a lot of money even for Disney.
Yeah. Well, we have those massive layoffs, which we're still going to see roll out throughout the entire year, too, especially in light of the strikes not being fully wound up. But I do think that this is a great thing for Disney. Hulu is just basically going to become the Galactus of all channels, just going to devour everybody and make them their own, you know? So it's really great for them. I just am interested to see what this final price is, to see how Disney truly feels about this acquirement.
Yeah, I'm just going out on a limb here. I think it's going to be closer to $11 billion.
Probably.
I really do. I think once the banks come in and they start doing their valuations, I think the number's going to get a little. And guess what? There's nothing Disney can do about it. They have to buy it at whatever the assessment comes in at. That's in their contract. So, yeah. Maybe they'll purposely try to tank Hulu over the next few weeks to lower the value. I don't know. All right, guys, with that down, we got to still talk about the fact that Jennifer Lawrence is saying she would love to come back and play Katniss in more Hunger Games films. We're going to talk about Queen music is going to be in Highlander. Also, we're going to kind of dissect this article from Variety talking about the massive mess that Marvel is right now and really the simple way to fix it all. But before we get to those, we're going to take a moment here, guys, and thank a couple of sponsors of today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast, our friends at Quip and the makers of the most comfortable shoes I've ever owned, Vessi.
That's what I'm talking about.
Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, Quip. Guys, you know that good health starts with good habits, and Quip makes it easy by delivering all the oral care essentials that you need to care for your mouth. For example, their incredible electric toothbrush. Guys, I've been using electric toothbrushes for years, and this is easily the best one I've ever owned. Timed sonic vibrations with 30-second pulses to guide a dentist-recommended 2-minute clean. A lightweight and sleek design for adults and kids with no wires or bulky charger to weigh you down. Reusable handles in a range of sleek metal hues, as well as bright plastic colors, sure to make a pop on your bathroom counter. Skip the batteries and snap into healthy habits with the new rechargeable electric toothbrush. All the features of the original Quip, plus one magnetic charge, powers up to 3 months of brushing. In addition to brush heads, Quip also delivers fresh floss, toothpaste, mouthwash, and gum refills every 3 months from just $7. So if you go to getquip.com/Campea right now, you'll get 20% off any electric toothbrush, mint and gum dispenser, or water flosser. That's your 20% off any electric toothbrush, mint and gum dispenser, water flosser at getquip.com/Campea. That's GETQUIP.com/Campea. Quip, the good habits company. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, Vessi. Now, you guys know I'm not exactly the most fashion conscious guy in the world, but I love a great pair of shoes that are comfortable and I can wear almost anywhere. And growing up in Canadian winters when my feet got wet a lot, waterproof would be nice too. Enter Vessi. They make the claim that they're not just fashionable and super comfortable, they're also waterproof. Now, you guys remember, when I got my first pair of Vessis, I put them to the ultimate waterproof test. I actually stuck my foot in my pool, my feet stayed dry, and the shoes stayed dry. Incredible. And they're the most comfortable pair of shoes I ever owned. Well, that made me want another pair. So I got another pair of Vessis that look great and just equal that world-class comfort that I got from that first pair of shoes. They are absolutely my favorite shoes that I've ever owned. Imagine your favorite sneaker style supercharged with waterproof technology and unmatched comfort. No matter how you like to stay active, Vessi has the shoes for you. Trail-ready high tops, effortless slip-ons, and classic court shoes, all with a waterproof twist. They are just as comfortable and stylish as your favorite sneakers, but even more versatile. So guys, if you're anything like me and you want the most comfortable pair of shoes that look great, that you can take out hiking, wear to work, go to the gym, or walk through the water and snow, go to Vessi.com/Campea and get yourself a pair today. Go to Vessi.com/Campea and get 15% off your order using the code Campea. And thank you to our friends at Quip and Vessi for sponsoring today's episode. All right, guys, with that down, let's go on to this, shall we? There's a brand new Hunger Games film coming out, and I gotta say, kind of like the Planet of the Apes thing, it was one of those films that I had very little interest in, and then I saw the presentation for it, and I was like, this looks scarily good. And the trailers have been remarkable. Oddly enough, like I'm shocked, and I'm actually really excited to see it now. Now, of course, Hunger Games was a massive box office smash for the studios for what it was, and it was the biggest thing that Jennifer Lawrence has ever done. Well, now apparently Jennifer Lawrence is saying she'd be more than willing to come back and play it again, though the producers are saying, they don't know if they'd want her. Anyway, this comes to us from the folks at Variety who said the following. Jennifer Lawrence told Variety in June during her No Hard Feelings press tour that she is totally open to reprising her Hunger Games role of Katniss Everdeen should the right opportunity arise. She added at the time, if Katniss could ever come back into my life, 100%. But franchise producer Nina Jacobson and director Francis Lawrence aren't counting on it. Why? Because Katniss' story feels complete, and it would hinge on Hunger Games author Suzanne Collins wanting to revisit Katniss herself. And again, that comes to us from Variety. Now, I'm kind of two minds on this. First of all, I'm not the biggest Hunger Games fan. Like, I loved the second film. Like, I liked the first one, loved the second one, kind of went downhill after that for me, so whatever. I really am excited about seeing the new Snakes and Ladders movie, whatever it's called, the new Hunger Games. Because the trailers look, I've never remember what the title of it is.
I think it's the Songs of Snakes on a Plane.
Songs of Snakes on a Plane. That's the better title. So, but I would say this. While I respect very much, actually, the idea of the producer and the director saying, hey, we think her story's done. And if we think her story's done, we're ready to move on from it. Okay, I respect that. However, I'm not big on prequels. Don't get me wrong, there are clearly prequels that have been made that I've enjoyed. But philosophically speaking, I don't like going backwards unless you go so far backwards that it doesn't really connect all that well. But guess what? One of the main characters in this new Hunger Games film is his name's not Cornelius, but it's
President Snow.
Cornelius Snow,
Yeah.
whatever the hell his name is. Snow. Guess what? I know what happens to him.
Yep.
I know where he ends up. Now, you could arguably say, John, when you watched Titanic, you knew how the Titanic ended up, right? True enough. Actually, that's a really good argument. That's a very good point. But for me, with character arcs, it's like, I don't have to wonder what's going to happen with Snow. I know where it's going. I know what the fate of this girl is. I know what the fate of Panem is. I know where Panem as a world is going to be after this. I'm sure they can still tell a great story. And like I said, the marketing has made me look forward to it. If you want to do more Hunger Games, though, the central figure of Hunger Games is Katniss Everdeen. She's it. I mean, the story of Hunger Games kind of is the story of Katniss Everdeen. And I think there would be value in saying, okay, the events that happen in the final Hunger Games are world-changing. So what happens next? I think there are stories there to tell. I'm not saying they should do more Hunger Games films. I'm just saying if you want to do more Hunger Games films, I think you got to do one of two things. Pick up the story of Katniss Everdeen or jump forward another 100 years where Katniss is long gone. Pifey, the Piff Drake. What's the kid's name? What's Josh Hutcherson's character's name? Piffy Pot Smoke?
Peta.
That's it. That's right. Some
Peta
kind of
Paca.
sandwich. Some kind of sandwich kid. Like Peta
Bread
is
boy.
long gone.
Yeah.
Their children are probably now long gone. Like maybe jump forward like 100 years. Kind of the same philosophy I have with Star Wars, right? Like, okay, move on to the next chapter of the next thing, or jump ahead another 150 years. Like, give us a new setting and context. I don't think the future of Hunger Games should be continuously going backwards. And if you do want to go forward, I think going forward with Katniss Everdeen is a perfectly good idea. Anyway, Chris, you hear about this. Jennifer Lawrence, totally open to coming back. But the current producer and director saying, we don't know if we think the story's been told. What do you think the future of Hunger Games should be here?
I really like what the team here was saying, too, that Suzanne Collins really works thematically.
The writer of the books.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that there were very specific themes she wanted to touch on with both participants in the Hunger Games. And those were different themes, different stories. And that Katniss is pretty much done, and they told what they needed to about that specific thing. Now, if you give me that older Katniss, right? And I mean, like, she is now Rose telling the story of the Titanic old. I could watch that and have her being part of whatever's happening with the Hunger Games if they are still continuing, if things have changed, yada, yada, yada. Seeing that kind of political shift and aftermath from what she'd done, that could be interesting. But I don't know if I need to see 5 years later with Katniss and Peeta. I don't think that's a story that I personally need to see. And I always love when an actor says they're open to it if the story makes sense, because at the end of the day, we're all jobbers. We want to get another job.
We're all jobbers.
You know? Yeah, if it's a good story, heck yeah, sign me up. And she did a wonderful job in that film franchise. Obviously, it really launched her career, even though she had tremendous work under her already. I mean, Winter's Bone.
Well, she had an Academy Award nomination already by that point.
But this is what made her a household name.
A superstar.
Yeah. So I can understand why she would want to come back, but I love that everyone is saying we're only going to tell a story if it makes sense to tell a story and not doing a money grab. So if they have something else to tell way in the future, things like that, see that kind of political aftermath, I think that's where the story could be found.
By the way, I don't care what anybody says. A little bit of a Nikki premise, sure, but no hard feelings. It was pretty damn funny. It was, and she was really good in it.
I didn't like it.
You didn't? I thought you, honestly, I'm surprised, not because I think it's so good that everybody, no. I honestly, I saw it, I thought you would really like that movie.
It's totally my kind of movie.
Yeah.
Was it Tremors with bad dates?
it was Tremors with bad dates.
Oh.
No, it was just, there were things around, oh yeah, it was in the trailer. Oh damn, she fully naked, okay. This is fine. One of the things that really bothered me was the timeline of just, this takes place over like a few days.
No. I remember thinking a little oddly about that too.
And then also everyone being like, ma'am, old woman, etc., to a 32-year-old Jennifer Lawrence, where I was like, none of these jabronis would kick her out of bed, okay? None of them. Not a single one would be like, this old hag. She looks so young and is so beautiful. That was another thing that I was like, I don't know about all these teenage boys thinking she's aged.
I did find those jokes funny, though.
They were funny, and she reacted really well to them. But that took me out of it. But mostly it was that timeline of just, I don't really buy this story and relationship so far.
But the funny thing too is when I look at the filmography of her, and if you were to tell me Jennifer Lawrence at one point will do like full frontal nudity, I never would have guessed that's the one she would do. Yeah. I thought it'd be something heavy and dramatic.
You do it for an Oscar,
like
right? You clinch an Oscar by going fully naked.
No. All right. We're not here to talk about no hard feelings. That was me bringing that up. Sorry about that, guys. Let's move on, shall we? In not our top story, but what is the most important news today? The upcoming Highlander reboot with Henry Cavill. One of the questions I brought up in a recent story about it when the movie now became official, they're marketing it now at the American film market and all that kind of stuff. Well, the thing I said is, what I got to know, besides who's playing Ramirez and who's playing Kurgan, I need to know, will the Queen soundtrack be back in this movie? Because I am immortal! I have inside me blood of kings!
Wow, is Freddie Mercury in the room right now?
Wow.
If you're going to have Highlander, you got to have that Queen soundtrack. And glory, glory, hallelujah, the saints have marched in because the director of the film has just confirmed that the Queen soundtrack will be in there. This comes to us from The Wrap, who said the following. One of the more iconic elements of Highlander is the high-concept fantasy adventure from 1986 that went on to spawn a long-running franchise is the movie's songs, written and performed by Queen. And Chad Stahelski, who will be directing the remake for Lionsgate, says those songs will return for the new movie. Yes! Stahelski told The Wrap. Queen wrote and recorded songs for the original Highlander movie and released an album, A Kind of Magic, in 1986 that served as an official soundtrack for the movie. Now, I don't expect any of you who do not know the glory of the original Highlander, who don't appreciate how, the very direction of humankind on Earth shifted the day that glorious movie came out. The day we first heard the phrase, there can be only one. Christopher Lambert, that French Scotsman, up there doing his thing.
Sean Connery, that Scottish
Spaniard.
Spaniard?
An Egyptian Spaniard, Sean Connery. Sure, why not? I am telling you, you have to have seen the original Highlander to know just how integral that Queen soundtrack was. Like when these certain moments of introspection are going on and you hear Freddie Mercury, who wants to live forever? Like you got to know how just ingrained in the DNA of that movie that the Queen soundtrack is.
And I had heard a fun fact. They had not even seen the movie. when they wrote the songs. Like they hadn't screened the movie.
He's just that good.
I'm not surprised.
Or was that good?
Freddie Mercury his brainwaves were just connected to the DNA of the movie and knew what had to be written.
Like they knew what it was about, but they hadn't screened it. So that's pretty crazy.
Oh my God. It's just such a part of it. I love this. I don't think every movie that has a remake has to go back to the original soundtrack. It's just that Queen soundtrack was such a part of it.
If you had Queen.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, that's where the conversations should stop, right? It had Queen.
It had Queen. It's the same thing with like, if you have Prince, and I know people have a problem with Batman, including Tim Burton at the time. It was like, I don't want Prince to do the soundtrack. It won't make this as timeless as I want it.
I mean, those songs just overshadowed the movie too, because in popularity, those songs continued.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas this went into like cult classic, but those songs are still like legit Queen songs.
Mm-hmm.
They're amazing.
Yeah, I was going to say, this Highlander topic is totally lost on me because all I know is there can only be one, yet there's all these movies, but some of them don't count, and maybe Aliens and Clancy Brown. And
there are no aliens. None. Not a single alien to be seen.
But I do know Who Wants to Live Forever.
Oh, I used to play that soundtrack. Actually, it wasn't called the soundtrack. Right? It was called A Kind of Magic, right?
Right.
The
Yeah.
album. I used to play that album all the time.
Oh, yeah. Here we are.
I'm excited
born
to watch
be
these.
kings. Oh, goes with. And by the way, guys, watch the Highlander. Watch the Highlander. Chris, sit down with Logan one night and just pop in the Highlander.
What if the second one is my favorite?
No,
It won't be. But honestly, The Highlander's a good movie.
You and I
Yeah.
can't be friends anymore. Like that.
Like, no, just get
Yeah,
out.
I'm sorry. This can't continue happening. All right. Guys, with that glorious news that should make everybody's day feel good, down and out of the way, let's move on to some stuff that is not making some people feel very good. You know, I have been saying, and many of people have been saying for a while now, that Marvel is on a downslide. Not to say that they're not still putting out some good stuff. I've said it myself. They are. Some stuff they are still putting out is still good, but a lot of the stuff they're putting out is not good. A much higher ratio of not good to good than what we are accustomed to having in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They have had their struggles. And we keep seeing it play out, whether it's, the whatever the hell that was with Secret Invasion, or the unfunny comedy known as She-Hulk, or, the stumbles and staggers that they've had along the way that have been completely out of character with the Marvel Cinematic Universe that we came to know and love over the course of 10, 11, 12, 13 years. Well, the other day, Variety put together an article that pretty much caught all of Hollywood on fire, basically talking about the mess that Marvel is in. And they have a couple of ideas. Now, look, we're not going to go through the whole article. I'm going to read a part of it at a little bit of length because even though that's kind of boring, I think it's important context to lay down. But I also wanted to point this out. Let's jump into the classroom for a second. So we've all recognized several big problems with Marvel lately in the last couple of years. Proper script development. I mean, hell, we just talked about the situation with Blade. Proper pre-production has not been happening. Massive visual effects problems. Disjointed MCU story flow, post-production stress and timelines, and mediocre product. I mean, this is just kind of highlighting in bullet form some of the things that all of us as film fans have been recognizing that is a problem. And what I believe is the actual source of all of it. There are many, many problems, but I believe there is one source to it. Let's jump into some excerpts here from the Variety article. Okay, I'm going to read some of this a little bit at length because I think it sets a really good stage. This comes from the Variety article. Part of it says, replicating that kind of phenomenon, they're talking about listen, bar none, the most successful thing in the history of Hollywood is the MCU. Nothing else comes close. Nothing comes close. I'm not saying nothing comes close in the terms of quality. I'm saying nothing has come close in terms of success. Nothing ever has, and nothing ever will. And it's with that context that they go on to write, replicating that kind of phenomenon is never easy. However, the source of Marvel's current troubles can be traced back to 2020. That's when the COVID pandemic ushered in a mandate to help boost Disney's stock price with an endless torrent of interconnected Marvel content for the studio's fledgling streaming platform, Disney+. according to the plan, there would never be a lapse in superhero fare, with either a film in theaters or a new television series streaming at any given moment. This sounds like something I've been talking about for the last couple of years, but we'll get to that in just a second. The article continues. But the ensuing tsunami of spandex proved to be too much of a good thing, and the demands of churning out so much programming taxed the Marvel apparatus. Moreover, the need to tease out an interwoven storyline over so many disparate shows, movies, and platforms created a muddled narrative that baffled viewers. What's that? Oh, no, that's fine. That's fine. Here's the problem. You guys know, who have been watching my show for any period of time, know that I've been talking about this for years. I have said, and by the way, the article goes on to highlight the problems with the post-production on the Marvels, the fact that Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania got moved up 4.5 months, which means they lost out on 4.5 months of possible post-production work, resulting in, I mean, it didn't hurt the script, which was already terrible, but resulting in some places laughably bad visual effects. Some of the VFX in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania look spectacular, but a lot of them looked uncharacteristically bad. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that the movie got moved up 4.5 months. Well, why did it get moved up 4.5 months? Well, because Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania was more done than the Marvels was done, so they swapped release dates with them to give even more time to that, but not accounting for the fact that Ant-Man and the Wasp wasn't fully baked yet. The problems with pre-production, script development, like all this kind of stuff. And I am telling you, as I've been telling you guys for 2 years or more, that the root cause of all these, you get the root cause at the bottom, which has now grown and branched out into 100 different problems, and it can all be traced back to the same thing. Kevin Feige is spread way too thin. I've been telling people this for years. I go back to the story. You guys, some of you remember this story. I told you about the day that I moderated the press day for Avengers 2, The Age of Ultron, right? I got to be the moderator of that. I had the whole cast of the Avengers there. I had Kevin Feige there. And I remember right before we started, I was standing backstage. Kevin Feige pulls up in a golf cart, looking exhausted. I said, "What's going on?" And he was just like, "Oh man, I'm being pulled in all these different directions," because they had three projects coming out in the next couple of years. You got to understand this about Disney and about Marvel specifically. The MCU is Kevin Feige. It's unlike any other movie studio setup. It's unlike any other studio workflow. Kevin Feige is at the heart of every single thing the MCU has done. That's why for years, whenever the topic of studio interference comes up, what have I always said? You know what studio has the most interference? Marvel is the most interfering studio, because Kevin Feige, at the end of the day, he has full control over everything. The thing is, that has been Marvel's secret sauce to success. Kevin Feige has been the heart of everything at the MCU, and why everything for over a decade was a smash hit. And they have more billion-dollar films than almost every other studio combined, just in the MCU. That's a little bit of hyperbole there, but I'm just making a point. It's all come down to this guy, Kevin Feige. And I started saying on this show years ago, as they started adding more and more to the workflow, I've said this 100 times. Kevin Feige is going to get spread too thin. His attention is going to get divided, and we are going to see eventually a decline in quality. Fast forward now to 2020. Actually, I was saying that before the pandemic, so not the last 2 years. I've been saying this for the last 4 years. Now, fast forward to the pandemic of 2020. Bob Chapek becomes the new CEO. Bob Iger had already set up Disney Plus, getting things moving. There was already a plan in place under Iger to have Marvel content on Disney Plus as well. But then the pandemic hit, Bob Chapek got rooted, and a new mandate came down. And it happened in 2 stages. One, Bob Chapek created a new leadership structure that stripped authority away from Kevin Feige and set up new layers of middle management above Kevin Feige up to the CEO. Before that, it had been Kevin Feige, it had been, why am I suddenly freezing on the greatest movie executive of all time?
Alan Horn?
Alan Horn, thank
Horn,
you.
yeah.
It was Kevin Feige reported directly and only to the head of all studio operations, which was Alan Horn, who reported directly to Bob Iger. That was your power structure. Bob Chapek instituted a new leadership structure that had Kevin Feige, middle management, a guy that oversaw him, then a new branch that oversaw the decision-making process about which entertainment was going to get made, which entertainment was going to go to movies, which entertainment was going to go to Disney Plus. That used to be a Kevin Feige decision. That was stripped away. Another layer of middle management with one of his banker buddies. And then you got up to who knew who was running the studio system at the time. And then came the second part, a mandate from Bob Chapek down that we needed to flood Disney Plus with new projects. There were already MCU projects that were going to go to Disney Plus. But suddenly there was a lot more. And it wasn't Kevin Feige's decision. And that we needed more. And I want to go back to this thing in this report here that I have up in the classroom. It says, according to the plan, this came down from Chapek directly. There would never be a lapse in superhero content with either a film in theaters or a new television series streaming at any given moment. This made the fundamental mistake of assuming that this was just a studio operation like any other studio operation. With the head of your studio, multiple executive producers, overseeing different projects at different times. But that's never what made the Marvel Cinematic Universe work. This isn't the way it should work with all other types of companies or other studios, but in this specific case, it worked because of one guy. Obviously, he had a good team working with him. Yes, I'm not saying otherwise, but at the heart of it was one man, Kevin Feige. And I said for years that the more you started to see him get stretched thin, you were going to start to see problems. All of a sudden, pre-production is not being given the attention that it needs to be given. All of a sudden, script development is not, you're now having scripts that get developed for like 6 months until finally they get in front of Feige's eyes or one of his main lieutenants to go, this is not good. What do you mean Blade is the fourth most important character in a Blade film?
Come on.
Or what do you mean She-Hulk doesn't have her first transformation shown until episode 8? That came very late in the process. The one good decision they made with She-Hulk was moving that to the beginning. Too bad they didn't have writers who knew how to write comedy. That's a separate thing. But as we go back to this list I showed off the beginning, proper script development, proper pre-production, visual effects problems, disjointed MCU story flow, post-production stress timelines, and mediocre product. This is all rooted back to that one core event. Feige getting spread way too thin. Now, instead of having an MCU where literally Kevin Feige was the guiding hand, even though he had great directors working with him too, Kevin Feige was the direct guiding hand on every single Marvel project that came out, and the quality assurance was way high. It's not a coincidence that the less and less of direct control Kevin Feige's been able to have over his projects, the lower and lower the overall quality of the MCU has been. These problems we're seeing popping up now have never been a problem before. And now they are. It's not a coincidence, folks. It's not rocket science. So how do you fix this? Well, you do exactly what Bob Iger said they need to do. It's time to cut back. It used to be that when a new Marvel thing was coming out, it was an event. Now it's a schedule. When WandaVision was coming out, before we had any other Disney Plus TV shows, it was the first thing we had in a while. Blah, blah, blah. That was must-see TV. That was an event. But there's so much MCU now that it's just a schedule. There's no more event of it. And it would still be fine if every single thing that was coming out knocked it out of the park, but it's not because of all those other problems that come from the same root problem. And so not only is it just a schedule, it's not even a schedule we're looking forward to all that much. I'm looking forward to seeing the Marvels, but ask me if I'm excited about it.
Are you excited about it?
I'm not, as a matter. Thank you for asking, Jonathan. As a matter of fact, I'm not excited. I'm not excited. Why? Because too much of Marvel's product lately has been mediocre. Some of it's been great. Some of it, yeah, it has. But a way higher percentage of it has been not great than I'm used to it having. Now I just don't know what I'm going to get. When it used to be When we would go into a Marvel movie, we expected greatness. We knew we were about to have a great time. And knowing you're about to have a great time sent hype levels and enthusiasm levels and all that kind of stuff through the roof. We no longer expect it. Now we hope for it. Catch that difference. We don't expect that great time anymore. Now we hope we get it because we don't know that we are. I'm going to go in to see the Marvels maybe Monday.
Me too, maybe.
And I'm going to hope it's great. I think it has a chance to be good, but I don't know that it's going to be good. Marvel hasn't given me enough to truly believe that it's going to be good. And I've been saying that for years. And now here we are. Anyway, I could literally talk for the next 2 hours about this. But Chris, those are kind of the highlights. You read the Variety article. Yeah. It's a relatively short article with a world of stuff to unpack.
Yes, which some things did get retracted when it was like Disney said that this isn't true, this thing isn't true, but still, it's a lot of chaos and nonsense.
There's a lot in there. Anyway, what's your overall perspective of this whole thing?
I mean, to echo what you were saying, it's been such a quantity over quality problem, and we've been saying this for ages, right? Just because you can make the content doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
And it's a lot in the same ways the problem with streaming right now, too, as a whole, or media consumption as a whole. It's too much content. It's just too much. And then even stuff that is pretty good, stuff that would be passable a few years ago, because we are constantly inundated with new material, it's hard to keep up, and it's hard to keep talking about it in a positive way, too. We just kind of have to data dump everything that we're getting. And you have to watch absolutely everything.
Yeah, it never used to be that way with Marvel.
You could just pop into something and enjoy that as a standalone, and then if you were following everything, you'd appreciate it. Or if you were a hardcore comic book fan, you could go, oh, hey, that's a really cool nod here, or ooh, I think they're doing this, but they're doing it in such an accessible way that people can be excited about this story. And hey, maybe they'll go to their local comic shop and pick up, some bags and boards and read some new stuff. There's been so much content, we've been inundated with it, and I don't think that works at all. They also stopped focusing on great storytelling and switched to stunt casting. When we first had Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr. was not who he is right now. Sure, he had a great career in the 80s, but he was struggling to get back into the limelight. A lot of the people who were in those big movies were not the stars we know them as now, and now we're potentially going to be finding ways to bring them back. Moving backwards is not the way forward here. Going back to excellent storytelling, giving us maybe 3 movies a year, maybe 2 shows, maybe a special here and there. I feel like that's the way forward, to do less and really make it absolutely outstanding. Because if you do have some superhero individual every few months popping up on screens, it's too much, especially when it's going to be interconnected. It feels, to borrow from another superhero franchise, right? The Incredibles. When everyone is special, no one is. And that's what Marvel feels like right now. Everyone is highly powered, and we're focused on who they are as heroes, but we're not focused on who they are as characters, their story, anything like that. And we're really driven by who they're casting, and it's not enough. It's just not.
And I really do believe that the answer to this, and it'll take time, is to scale it back.
Yeah.
Put more of your resources, more of your attention, and more of Kevin Feige, quite frankly, into each project and make sure each individual project gets the attention, the care, the nurturing, the development, all that kind of stuff that it deserves and needs, and make Marvel stuff events again. And listen, I disagree with what some of the people are saying. I think bringing back like Steve Rogers, Tony Stark, I think those would be good moves because narrative speaking, I think those are the heart and soul of the MCU. And yeah, they've been around for 10 plus years in the movies, but they've been around for 70 plus years in the comics. And, they're just such core people. But I mean, whether you do or whether you don't, bring them back. If they just get back to actually giving each project the time, the space, the air to breathe, and the attention that they deserve, they can get back on track. But as long as they keep trying to put out 6, 7, Ray, what did you say? What was the final number? The number of MCU projects that was coming out over a 2-year span? Was it like 12 or 13 or something like that?
I thought it was the one where after Chapek started asking.
But
for
yeah,
stuff?
but anyway, there was like a span that came out, and sometime in the last couple of years, where like there was like 12 or 13 projects over the span of 2 years. It's like that's never sustainable. And I think that's ultimately the root core of why they've had the problems that they have. And again, listen, let me be very clear. Marvel's mess is still better than probably 50% of everything else that's out there. The problem is Marvel set the standard so high, not just for excellence in their genre making stuff, but the success and all this kind of stuff, that them being where they are here looks pretty bad compared to themselves. Marvel's mess is still wild success compared to the DCEU or something like that.
It's just strange to see it go from sure bet to wishy-washy on whether or not we're getting quality, right? But what I love about this Variety article is that quote at the end, though, that USC professor of don't discount Feige. He is the Babe Ruth of filmmaking, right? He knows what he's doing. He just needs less on his plate. So I think there's hope here.
Yeah. And by the way, that responsibility is going to be on, now that Iger has given him back his authority, that's going to be his responsibility to make that decision to lower their output. Because if he doesn't choose to lower the output, then that's on him.
For sure.
So hopefully, and it sounds like Iger will have his back if he does that. It's something that they need to do. Anyway, I'm sure there's going to be a million different opinions about this, probably some really good points of view on this. And I'm sure we're going to hear them, read them, see them over the coming days and weeks as well. And let's see what Marvel does. With that said, guys, that opens the door for you giving your opinion on this thing about the status Marvel is in, or any of the other topics that we discussed here today. If you guys are watching the Super Chats, oh no, Jonathan has closed the Super Chats.
Oh no.
So forget what I just said. If you didn't already send one in, you can't send one in now. So because they're closed off. But we're going to get to all those questions and topics that you guys and opinions that you guys have been sending in. But before we do, we're going to take a quick second to thank a couple of more sponsors of today's episode. Our friends at Marine Lair and my mobile service provider, and they should be yours, Mint Mobile. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Marine Lair. It's official, guys. I have found the softest t-shirt of all time, so soft, it's ridiculous. All thanks to the San Francisco-based Marine Lair. Marine Lair is the go-to brand for great fitting and stylish closet staples. Their clothes are that perfect mix of laid-back style and also looks and feels premium. It's time to invest in a wardrobe that will actually last. For a limited time, the John Campea Show viewers and listeners get an exclusive 15% off with the code Campea15 at marinelair.com. Now, guys, you know I am not the most fashionable guy in the world, but I appreciate a good looking shirt, but more importantly, I appreciate a comfortable shirt. And the shirts that I've got from Marine Lair fit both of those beautifully. And they've even got sizes like Marge, which is in between medium and large, so everyone can get their perfect fit. The best part, if you buy any 3 tees from Marine Lair, you automatically get 20% off. And Marine Lair goes way beyond just t-shirts too. They've got super laid back overshirts, pants, jackets, and all the cozy layers you want for the cooler seasons. I think we can all admit that the perfect tee can be hard to find. Look no further than Marine Lair. For a limited time, get 15% off with the code Campea15 at marinelair.com. That's Campea15 for 15% off your entire order at marinelair.com. Saving your closet one shirt at a time. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Mint Mobile. Signing your life away to a big wireless provider is kind of like being trapped on a roller coaster from hell. Sure, it looks like fun at first. They probably even threw in a free phone, but now you can't get off. Month after month of insane bills and unexpected thrills, like overages and surprise fees. If that sounds like your current big wireless plan, it's time to get off the ride with Mint Mobile. For a limited time, wireless plans from Mint Mobile are just $15 a month. That's unlimited talk, text, and data for just $15 a month. You guys know before I came to Mint Mobile, I was paying triple what I am paying now on the standard big wireless plan, and I will never go back. All plans come with unlimited talk, text, and high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. To get your new unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped right to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Cut your wireless bill to just $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Campea. And thank you to our friends at Marine Lair and Mint Mobile for sponsoring today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast. All right, guys, with that down, let's get over to your questions that you guys have been firing in. Chris, what do we got up first?
From, thank you, Raymond. If there's a Highlander remake with original Queen songs, I want a Flash Gordon remake with original Queen songs. Flash. Savior of the universe.
Savior of the universe. I'm one of the few. I remember John Schnepp and I used to talk about the potential of Flash coming back. Flash Gordon, I should say, come back. And I gotta admit, I've never been a huge Flash Gordon guy, but if they did, I'd be down to hear that Queen song. I mean, I would also say the Queen songs in that weren't as integral as they were in Highlander, but I'd be down for it. All right, what's next?
From Christopher Brickner, did you see the first trailer for FX's Shogun?
30 seconds, literally 30 seconds before we started today's show, Ray's like, there's a Shogun trailer. I'm like, we're starting the show in 30 seconds.
Yeah, I was like, Ray, why did you say
I have
anything?
not watched it yet, but I'm dying to watch it. I can't wait to see it. All right, what's next?
From Stacy's mom,
Does
who
she
I
have it
assume
going
has
on?
it going on. Thoughts on if Marie had ended up as a villain instead? After she followed the script instead of giving credit to Jordan, I thought she would eventually become the monster her sister saw her as.
I don't think, for those of you who don't know what he's talking about, he's talking about Gen V, the show.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Which, by the way, season finale tonight. Cannot wait. I mean, that could have been an interesting but predictable thing in the world. See, the thing about the world of the boys is that the whole philosophy of Billy Butcher is that once somebody realizes they have power, they're going to go bad. And to have just yet, and we've seen that, full of that in the world of the boys. It's the exception when you get somebody like Starlight, right? So to have, if you want your central character to be something special, unique about them, Marie just breaking bad would just be like another soup in the world of the boys. So I'm glad they did it the way they did it. All right, what's next?
From Christopher Brickner, after reading the Variety article, it seems Chapek's streaming focus and the system he set up at Disney was the main factor in Marvel's decline. It was just too much, and Marvel's got stretched thin.
I mean, that is certainly part of it, but I would also say this. Even before Chapek's new system, and even before Chapek decided that everything had to be about Disney Plus, there was already an uptick. There was already the startings of the uptick in output from Marvel, which concerned me before the pandemic, right? Like I said, when I talked to Feige that one time, he was frazzled, and that was just with a couple of movies coming out in the next year and a half or 2 years. I'd always kind of been worried about it, and we had seen the uptick already start to happen. Did Chapek, worsen the problem with the mandate after that to like just flood? We got to make all this product now, double your output and all that kind of stuff. Yes, but to not give too much blame to Chapek, we'd already started to see the increase of the output from the MCU as well. And who knows, maybe without Chapek's mandate, maybe Feige would have figured that out and capped it, maybe not, but it certainly didn't help, man. That certainly didn't help. All right, what's next?
From Hawks TV, have you watched The Office Superfan episodes yet? Each episode is 5 to 10 minutes longer and hilarious. It's like watching it for the first time all over again.
I have not, but I've watched some of the extra new footage in clips. And I think you're right. I think going back and watching those episodes with that new stuff, and it would probably make it feel fresh again. I've been rewatching all of Parks and Rec, which I do every once in a while because I love that show. I think the next time I do my rewatch of The Office again, I will probably do it with the Superfan cuts this time because I've been hearing great things about it. All right, what's next?
From Stacy's mom again, do you think Andre will be radicalized like Kate and Sam? Right now the group is split 3 versus 2. His decision will have a massive impact on what happens next.
I don't think so. When you look at his dynamic with his father and stuff like that, he seems to have a pretty solid conviction and a pretty solid moral north compass about what it is to be a hero. So I don't think we're going to see him get radicalized. All right, what's next?
From Omar Lopez, you said Hollywood was all about money.
It is.
So how can Marvel be a mess when Phase 4 made $6 billion? More than all the other studios combined. Mm-hmm. So is Hollywood all about money or quality? Choose one.
No, that's stupid. That's stupid. Either have meat or have vegetables. Choose one. No. Look, you're talking about the box office gross. You're not talking, I noticed you conveniently left out the box office net because their net was significantly lower than the previous phases. Like I already said, like if you want to compare the current mess state of Marvel to the DCEU, huge success compared to the other Marvel stuff. Their profit per film has dropped insanely. That's math. That's not an opinion. That's math. It has. But also to say, well, hey, they're still making more than the DCU. You know what that's like saying? This is what that's like saying. When MySpace was in free fall, some of you may not remember, MySpace used to be the dominant social media platform.
I'm still on it.
It's like saying, like when MySpace dropped like 70% of their traffic and 70% of the users, but they were still ahead of Facebook at that time, saying, nothing's wrong at MySpace. Look, we're still ahead of Facebook, ignoring the cliff that they dropped off. Quality equals money. That's what a lot of people miss. Better quality equals more money. You put out a bad movie that made $400 million. If that movie had been great, probably would have made $550 million.
Yeah. It's not a matter of quality or money. The comparison would be time and quality. But if they take the time to make quality, they're going to make more money, which is to your point.
So you can say they made $6 billion. Okay, that's great, but that's gross.
Yeah.
That's gross, not net.
Got him.
That's gross, not net.
Yeah.
Their net profit per project dropped like a stone in a river. And if you just think, well, we're still ahead of the DCEU, so everything's fine, then you're that little yellow dog sitting in the fire going, everything's fine. This is fine. Their profit drop off is insane. Their quality drop off is insane. So that's great. You gross $6 billion, but you put out twice as much stuff. So it comes down, what are your earnings per project? What's your earnings per project? And if your earnings per project have dropped significantly, which they have, then you better be alarmed. Because if you're not alarmed, you're not going to fix it, and they need to fix it. All right, what's next?
From Mattuine, how will the Canadian economy survive if the strike continues? Seems like almost every movie or show is filmed up there.
Yeah.
I kid, but seriously, what's Canada think about this? Speak for all of Canada.
Yes, allow me to be, I am the king of the North. Just so you know, I am Canada's king.
So
not
you know
everybody
nothing?
in Canada knows it, but I am your king. So I will speak for Canada. Yeah, listen, so much stuff shoots in Canada.
Especially Vancouver.
I think most average fans don't understand just how much stuff is actually filmed up in Canada. Like even in my town of Hamilton, like tons of shit films in Hamilton, Toronto, Calgary, but especially around Vancouver. Like there's so much production that takes place up there. Now, it doesn't represent a huge part of Canada's economy, but that people who work in that industry, you know they're feeling it. They're totally feeling it. All right, what's next?
From AL, did you guys know that Garfield, Planet of the Apes, and Furiosa are coming out on the same day in 2024? Next, Barbenheimer.
Really? I mean, the Garfield is a non-event. I'm convinced until I see a trailer. Otherwise, I think the Garfield thing is a non-factor. But Furiosa and Planet of the Apes on the same day? No way that happens. No way that happens. Because unlike Barbie and Oppenheimer, which are clearly marketing to very different audiences, I do not believe for a second that Furiosa and Planet of the Apes are marketing two different audiences. They're going after the same demographic. So no way that happens. They may be on the same day right now. One of them's going to move. Whether it's moved by a few weeks or a few months, I don't know. But there's no way I believe those two movies will come out at the same time. Garfield's fine. Garfield's a totally different demographic. Mm-hmm. It can open on the same day as any of those movies, and that's fine. But Furiosa and Planet of the Apes will not open on the same day. There's no way I believe that's going to happen. Who knows? All right, what's next?
From Christopher Brickner, Josh McDaniels is likely returning as the Patriots OC.
Probably.
Be worried. Belichick wants Josh to succeed him as HC after the last 2 stints as HC. Yikes.
Except that, remember, Josh McDaniels' 2 stints as the offensive coordinator of the New England Patriots led to like a lot of Super Bowls. And Belichick will not get to pick his successor. Robert Kraft will do that. And no matter how much Belichick wants it, he won't get it. And I don't think that he's going to get the head coaching job after Belichick retires. But I would love to see him back as offensive coordinator. All right, what's next?
From Tom's Bombadil, I read She-Hulk had a budget of $225 million. In comparison, a Forbes article said Foundation Season 1 only cost $45 million. Experience and clear vision saves you money.
I mean, look, when you look at the sets and everything of Foundation, you could see how, I mean, still think 45 million is pretty inexpensive, but you can see how that wasn't necessarily a $200 million project. With She-Hulk, and a fully CGI character and all that kind of stuff. But listen, I didn't see $225 million on screen. Again, lack of a showrunner, lack of an experienced executive that knows how to put television together. All that kind of stuff came into play. It shouldn't have been that expensive, but was what it was. I mean, Foundation is so good. And what they were able to pull off for that budget is crazy good. All right, what's next?
From the Fusion Bros, one of two. Max sent me an email that my monthly ad-free rate is staying the same, but instead of 3 devices streaming at once, only 2, and instead of full HD video resolution with selected titles in 4K HDR with Dolby Atmos, now it's just full HD video resolution. Me aside, in general, is this a big deal in your expert opinion? Sign of the times changing?
Okay, so here's the thing. Literally about 2 minutes before we started the show, I was standing with Jonathan getting something ready for the show, and I said, oh, I just got a notification on my phone from Max saying, your plan is changing, but not the price. And I said, well, I don't got time to read this. I'm assuming you just told me what was in that email. I don't think, none of those sound world-changing to me, to be honest with you. I mean, was this on the ad-supported plan? Is that what he said specifically? That
I'm
this was
not
a
sure.
part of the ad-supported plan? Jonathan, can you bring that up again?
Yeah, it was the ad-supported plan.
Yeah, I mean, so that doesn't affect me at all because I don't like commercials.
This
so.
goes to what I was going to say yesterday because we were talking about Netflix, and their ad-supported is only 1080. They tried to get away with 720. That's bunk. They pushed it to 1080. I'm like, that sucks, man. Then make another ad tier that's a little more but still lower than the other so I can get 4K. Then I'm in.
So, I mean, I think right now there's like 2 or 3 levels. I think at some point they're going to make it like professional boxing. There's going to be 45 weight classes. There's going to be basic ad plus, basic ad max, regular plus max, whatever. I don't know. I think that's coming. All right, what's next?
From Andy, Deadpool and Wolverine will face each other in a twerk-off, which is why the new Deadpool movie will be named Deadpool vs. Wolverine, Dawn of Just Ass.
Just ass. I could totally see Deadpool offering a twerk-off with Wolverine. I can't see Wolverine accepting it, but yeah. All right, what's next?
From Free Metroid Hat, sending in a $20 super chat.
Thank you, Free Metroid.
The top 3 shows I'm excited for are The Boys, The Last of Us, and Arcane. Can't wait for more great TV.
Yeah, Arcane. One season turned that into my favorite animated show of all time. I have no idea when that's coming back.
No.
I feel like it's been 2 or 3 years since it was out already. But Arcane, The Boys, Last of Us, and House of the Dragon. I mean, these are the things that I'm really super stoked for. All right, what's next? Oh, and Andor. So who was in the live chat? Michael Gonzalez in the live chat. Just remind me, Andor as well. Yeah.
From Q, hey John, did I see the trailer for the new Shogun FX series? It looks really good.
No, and I'm so jealous of those of you who've already seen it. Like I said, I found out it dropped like just before. That's how soon to start of the show was. I didn't even have time to sit down and watch the trailer. So I haven't seen it yet. Everybody knows I've been really excited for this show. I love the original. First of all, I love the book. I love the original miniseries. I've been wanting them to redo FX. I've been wanting them to redo Shogun. Very excited about it, but I haven't had a chance to see it yet. All right, what's next?
From Disgraceful Entertainment, the new Blade project has been in development longer than Black Adam was.
Not quite, but it feels like it. I mean, Black Adam was literally like 15 years. I mean, it's crazy to think about. I mean, it went through different iterations, but like Dwayne Johnson was, to one degree or another, attached to a Black Adam project for like 15 years. So not quite, but it is starting to feel like it. All right, what's next?
From Andy, when Dom hands his crucifix over to Brie Larson in Fast X and tells her nothing is impossible through faith, it brought a whole new meaning to, through Jesus, anything is possible.
Family. There's nothing redeemable about that movie. I take that back. Jason Momoa's character was a bright spot in that movie. Other than that, really nothing else redeemable about that movie whatsoever.
There was this scene. That was pretty cool.
Yes, you're a pussy.
You're a pussy comes to the rescue again. All right, what's next?
From Chris Miner. After rewatching Curb Your Enthusiasm for the 5th or 6th time,
Nice.
I'm officially calling that show my favorite sitcom of all time.
I love it.
Larry David is a genius and social assassin.
Larry David is a genius. He's like, when he's not doing crypto commercials, Larry David is a real genius. And that's part of the reason why when Seinfeld teased that they may be doing some kind of a relaunch of Seinfeld, the thing that made it extra exciting was said him and Larry David have been talking about it and doing something like that together. That dude's humor is so freaking sharp. So good. All right, what's next?
From Desire, did you see Star Wars Theory's rant about Star Wars today? He made some interesting points about how they decide to budget certain projects.
No, I haven't. And even if I did, I don't tend to critique or break down other YouTubers' takes on things. Like, so if you saw it, great. I have not seen that one yet. I probably wouldn't be discussing it anyway. All right, what's next?
From Caleb, I watched Brie Larson's A Lesson in Chemistry on Apple TV Plus. It's pretty solid, and she's a pretty strong actress with a powerful performance.
I haven't watched it yet.
Me neither.
I'm interested because she's an Academy Award-winning actress. I saw the trailer. I thought it looked interesting, but I've been hearing from a bunch of people that she could win an Emmy for it. So, Have you seen it, Chris?
I have not. I'm really excited about it because I like the book. So
yeah, so I like, as someone who's never read the book, as somebody, I thought the marketing was only okay. So I haven't been really jumping. I didn't even know it came out yet until I started having people writing into me saying she could get an Emmy for this. I'm like, okay, well, at some point I'll have to watch it, I suppose. All right, what's next?
From Luis Enrique de la Peña, sources close to Variety and CBR, Marvel might consider bringing back the OG 6 Avengers. Could this happen in Secret Wars?
They wouldn't need Secret Wars to do. They could do it under any movie, any project, any context, any pretext that they wanted at any time. I personally think it would be a good idea, but here's the thing. I always say it's not about formula. It's not about whether the movies are interconnected. It's not about whether or not you bring this character back. It's just about making each individual project you make, whoever's in it and whatever it's about, as good as it can be. So you can bring back Chris Evans as Steve Rogers, and you can bring back Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark. I don't think with all the legal issues you're going to get Scarlett Johansson back, but you can do all of that. If you're still trying to put out 10 projects over 2 years, it's still going to end up crap, right? So you can do all that kind of stuff, but that's just formula. You got to make sure that each individual project is getting the attention it deserves and has the proper quality control in the pre-production, production, and post-production stages. And unless you do that, it doesn't matter who you bring back. It doesn't matter who you bring back. If it's still going to make a mediocre product, it's just going to be, this one's going to be a mediocre product with Tony Stark in it. You're not fixing anything. So I like the idea of bringing them back, but only if you fix the other problems too. That's the only way it works. All right, what's next?
From Bobby Jackson, hey John, did you get a chance to watch the Shogun and Fall Guy trailers? If so, what did you think?
But I did watch the Fall. I wanted to talk about the Fall Guy trailer today, but we already are over. I mean, we're already running over time today. But I quite like the Fall Guy trailer. I think it looks like, I love Ryan Gosling. I love the fact that also you got Aaron Taylor-Johnson in there, who looks hilarious. I love Emily Blunt. Taking that concept from the old show and bringing it into a modern time, I think it's got a lot of promise. So hopefully it'll be good. All right, what's next?
From Caleb, what happened to PETA? Five Nights at Freddy's.
Well, that's a question and a statement.
I'm not quite sure what you're asking, but PETA...
What happened to him in Five Nights at Freddy's?
He's in it.
Yeah, he's there. You can see it on Peacock. It's free. All right, what's next?
From Seplufan02. New app, who dis? Also, One Piece LA was super fun. All right.
Yeah, they won't have to. They'll just call Disney. What I think will happen is what they did in other countries. Like in some other countries, they have, what's the network called? Star or something like that. You have Disney Plus, and then you open it. You got the Star Wars section. You got this section. And I think Star is one of the subsections within that. And you can click on that. And I think that's what will happen here with Disney Plus. You'll have Disney Plus, and within Disney Plus, you will have Hulu. Will be like a subsection within Disney Plus. And again, no one's told me that's what they're doing. That's just me guessing. But I think that makes sense considering how they've handled things internationally. All right, what's next?
From Mark, you know how A-List pays studios a set admission price?
Yes.
Do they also pay that same amount for $5 fan favorites and screen unseen, or is it just the $5?
I'm sure there's a special arrangement that they make. I mean, look, if it's $5, look, if a studio's supposed to get, say, 33% of the ticket cost, well, if the ticket's $5, they get 33% of that. Now, I'm sure they have to make an arrangement with the studio, whoever's behind it at the time, and say, hey, look, for this special Monday screening. See, what the theaters can't do is just go, you know what? We've got this new Marvels movie already here. Let's just do a screening of it on Monday. No. This is a marketing promotional arrangement that they make with the studio. The studio has to be all on board with it, and they make specific arrangements. What percentage of that, if you use your A-list to get it, like I have, goes to the studios or not, I'm not really sure. It doesn't probably fall under the same normal operation of A-list with a regular release. So we'll see. All right, what's next?
From Luis again. Today is the Day of the Dead in Mexico.
Oh, I didn't know that.
2 questions. Do you have a favorite movie about death and grief? Or if you could interview someone who passed away, who would it be?
Ooh, I think if I could interview, I mean, talking in the movie industry and stuff like that, anybody who passed away, it might be Peter O'Toole. He was one of my favorite actors of all time. Every time Peter O'Toole appeared in something, he made it better. So maybe that. I don't really know. Oh, what was that? Now, for whatever reason, I'm freezing on his name. The guy who played Snape.
Alan Rickman?
Alan Rickman. Alan Rickman had this film called, I'm trying to remember the name of it. It was nominated for several Oscars. Basically, it's about him and this, I think it was his wife. They're desperately in love, but he's
Truly,
died.
Madly, Deeply?
Truly, Madly, Deeply. Thank you. That's a wonderful movie about some of those things specifically. It's really, really special. If you haven't seen it, Truly, Madly, Deeply, I'm glad you remember the name of that. Did you see that film?
Mm-hmm. It's beautiful.
Oh, it's so good. So good. But that's a good one for that. All right, what's next?
From Harv's K. Hey, Jonathan. What were the standouts of the Ghibli films that you went to see this year? Trailer for The Boy and the Heron is out today, too. Ooh.
I've actually seen a trailer for it. They were running it during that festival.
Oh, fine.
Yeah, but so they were running like a Miyazaki film like from March all the way through September. It ended with Spirited Away, and I hadn't seen any of them, so this was all great for me. So I would say Porco Rosso was a standout for me. I think Princess Mononoke is still my favorite.
I love that one.
Of those. Mm-hmm. And then I liked Howl's Moving Castle.
That's my favorite.
I was surprised, even though Spirited Away wasn't quite what I thought it was. I thought it followed that No Face, like that he was the main, but he wasn't.
Yeah.
Or whatever it was. But the imagery and the story still kind of stuck with me. It was haunting.
I'm curious. Did they show Grave of the Fireflies?
No, that
they
was
didn't
not
want
on
people
there.
sobbing in a movie theater.
No.
But
they did like Ponyo. They did My Neighbor Totoro was the first one they did. The Wind Rises. Yeah, they did a lot of them. Yeah.
All right, what's next?
From Seconds for Disaster. Growing up, I watched the Highlander show every week with my mother, so I'm really stoked to see Henry join the Clan MacLeod. Is that his name? MacLeod?
Yeah, MacLeod.
The immortal Superman.
Now, of course, the television show was not about Connor MacLeod, who is the Highlander, but rather his cousin, Duncan MacLeod.
Who's the Highlander?
Who was also a Highlander.
What?
So here's the thing.
No.
Highlander is not the Immortals, right? They don't call the Immortals Highlanders.
Okay.
They called Connor MacLeod the Highlander because he was from the Scottish Highlands.
He's Scottish.
He was like, oh, the one that's the Highlander.
So there can only be one Highlander?
No, there can only be one immortal.
Oh.
Because they're from like Japan.
Okay,
China,
I was like,
and
why
South
the fuck
America.
do they keep
It's
saying there
like
can
the
only be one
Highlander.
and there's so many goddamn
It's like
many of
saying
them?
the Valley Girl.
Oh.
Like if one of the Immortals was
There's
maybe from
tons of
the
us.
San Fernando Valley, and they would just call her the Valley Girl. That doesn't mean the Immortals are called the Valley Girls.
That'd be
It's
awesome,
She
though,
happens to be the Valley Girl.
Yeah.
Connor
She's from the
MacLeod
Highlands
is
of
the
Scotland.
Highlander.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yes.
Although there's definitely people in the valley who probably are going to live forever. It's scary out there.
All right.
True.
What's next?
From Ulatan. Before the MCU made movie crossovers a thing, what are some other crossovers from the past that aren't remembered today? Not counting Jason versus Freddy or Alien versus Predator.
I can't really think of any. I mean, I'm sure there are. I just can't think of any off the top of my head. I mean, it happened more in television. Like I remember, with spinoffs too. Like you would there every once in a while. I think there was an A-Team and a Smith and Smith crossover. I think there would be some crossovers in comedies sometimes that would happen. It happened a bit back in the day, not a lot. I mean, now today you have complete cinematic universes on television, right? Like you have the Chicago ones with the Chicago Fire, Chicago PD, Chicago Sanitary. I don't know what the other ones are. And then you have like the Law and Order universe too. Well, they'll cross over, but I can't really think of movie ones that did.
Fun fact about the NBC comedies of like the 90s, they were all in the same world because Mad About You, Paul Reiser's character used to live in Kramer's apartment across from Seinfeld. He was the one who was subletting it to Kramer. And it was Paul Reiser's character. Because in an episode of Mad About You, he goes and visits that hallway and he runs into Kramer. They're also in the same world as Friends because Phoebe's twin sister, I can't remember her name, is a waitress at a place where Paul Reiser and Helen Hunt go to.
Ursula.
Yeah.
Ursula, I think was her name.
And then
I
also
don't remember any of this.
And then I think Paul or somebody had visited Boston and they were like, they didn't mention Cheers, but they said, oh, I went to this really cool bar in Boston, and it's Cheers. Yeah.
Oh,
all right.
Okay, that's fun. I love that.
This is the ultimate crossover, you guys. 1990s cartoon all-stars to the rescue. An anti-drug full feature film in which the Smurfs, Pooh and Friends, the Flintstones talk to you about the dangers of doing drugs.
Oh my God.
It is terrible and messed me up.
You just reminded me of one. There was also cartoons. Guys, I'm going to need help with this because I just have a rough memory of this. There was a cartoon show that was basically like every week's episode was like Olympic events between the various different cartoon worlds. So like Hanna-Barbera characters would be competing against whatever the other animation characters, and they would battle it out. Like Captain Caveman would be on one team. And
Laugh Olympics?
What's it called?
Laugh Olympics, Laff.
Actually, yes, Laugh Olympics. That's it. Now, I haven't thought about that in years. That was on when I was like a little kid, but I cannot remember all
I feel like that was centered around the 84 Olympics in LA. Because I remember watching those too.
That would make sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We only got time for my apologies to our YouTube channel members that we don't have a lot of time. We've already gone way over time today, but let's get to a couple more of our channel members' questions.
From Yo Tej, Game Day.
Game Day.
Gen V finale, Loki penultimate episode,
Yes.
Invincible season 2 premiere. Let's effing go.
Ooh, does Invincible launch today?
Wow.
Season 2? Wow.
I still got to watch that Adam Eve special.
Yeah, I never did watch the Adam Eve special. I'm not terribly interested in it, but I'm looking forward to seeing Invincible season 2. I really like season 1. But yeah, like Gen V's finale, the next episode of Loki. I mean, yeah, it's going to be a good day. And it's Thursday Night Football. So it's a good day for me. Good day for me. All right, what's next?
From Disgraceful Entertainment, I was pretty disappointed about War for the Planet of the Apes, but the new trailer does give me hope.
I agree 100%. I did not like the third film. I thought that the entire third film was a misleading bait and switch. But I got to tell you, man, this trailer has got me on board. It really has. I think it looks really good. All right, what's next?
From Sam Fisher, the trailer for The Fall Guy reminded me of Hitman's Bodyguard
Little
in the
bit.
best way. I love that the new Planet of the Apes movie looks connected to the previous movie, but clearly starting a new story.
Yeah, this is what I'm always talking about. Like, if you're going to tell a story in the future about something, go way in the future. That's what they've done here. They've gone, okay, so it's the end of Caesar's. Well, now instead of talking about, well, who's the ape that comes next after Caesar? No, they just fast forward like 500 years or however many years into the future. And you're in the same world, but you kind of have a clean slate, like a purely white page to start from. So let's see if they do something with that. All right, last question of the day. What's next?
From Red One Real Talk. John, your beloved Jennifer Garner has a new holiday movie coming out to Netflix, Family Switch. Doesn't look great, but the movie has elements of what I enjoyed about Freaky Friday and 13 Going on 30, so I'll give it a chance. Think you'll keep your eye on this?
I love Jennifer Garner.
Oh, here we go.
Are you going to watch her
There we
Netflix
go.
Christmas movie?
I'm not 100% sure, but probably. She's been my core celebrity crush for probably like, when did Alias first come out?
97?
Oh yeah. Okay. Like, ever since then.
That was quick to have.
I know. Hold on.
He's like,
I love
no,
Jennifer.
2001.
2001. Okay. So like for 20 years, Jennifer Garner has been like my main celebrity crush. I love her. She had a little John Wick style movie come out a couple of years ago.
Peppermint.
That was, I don't know why it didn't get more people's attention. It was actually pretty good. I mean, it wasn't as good as John Wick, but it was actually pretty good. And she kicks copious amounts of ass in it.
She's great at stunt work and combat. She's so good.
I love her. She was really great in the Adam Project as well. I like her in everything. And I still remember the first time I actually got a chance to interview her. And she was like 7 months pregnant at the time. And, you know, I hear other people say this, and sometimes it's just fake compliments. You hear people like, somebody sees a pregnant woman and they say, oh, she's glowing. I think that's just fake compliments most of the time. She glowed. I mean, I'm like, how can you just be? I mean, I love Jennifer Garner. Don't know why. My wife makes fun of me all the time for it, but there you go. All right, guys. And that'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show podcast. Thank you so much for being here and making this show part of your day. Big special thank you to all you guys who sent in questions. Number one, because you gave us interesting things to talk about. But number two, you supported our channel, whether by using super chats or being one of our channel members. And all of us involved with the show, thank you guys so much for that support. I want to thank the people in the room with me. We got Ray Ora.
All right, I'm going to watch the finale of Invasion, like I said yesterday, but I was very wrong. I was very wrong. I was a week off.
Oh.
So,
now you're going to see it. Jonathan Voico's here.
That's what I'm saying.
And of course, Chris Carr's been here.
Bye, guys.
Thank you so much, guys, for being here. My name's John Campea. And until next time, my friends, bye-bye.